Biyurim, why Binyan Malchus is required, Rosh-השנה, and what that means. So one of them brings out that flaw of Ein Sof, and the marshal for that was the marshal. And the other beer that called Advar Mechizim Kadmusam is beyond that flaw of the Ein Sof, but touches Atzmus, which is not begetted haflaw or not haflaw, as explained at length in the last 3-4 days. Now is Vov. Rosh-השנה, there's two inyanim. Number one, Iker in Rosh-השנה, Aleph b'Tishrei, Hu sheb'yom zeh nivra Adam. The main thing Rosh-השנה is that on this day Adam was created. The whole Shana b'yom zeh is Chadash in the B'riyas Adam. And every year on Rosh-השנה, so this is renewed, the creation. Now, Adam specifically now qualifies, you mean Eden. As the Gemara says, famous Gemara in Yevamos, based on the Pasuk, that Atem Kroim Adam, Eden are called Adam. So bottom line is that Rosh-השנה is the Schadshus of Eden. Just to add the note that Adam, of course, the first Adam Rishon. So why are we saying Eden when Adam Rishon is, of course, the origin of all humanity? So one of the answers is that Mitzad is Guf. He's the origin of all humanity. Mitzad is Neshama, Eden. We're talking Eden, Neshama, as the Maamar goes on to say. Second thing is V'oid in Rosh-השנה, the Kivan Sha'adam Hu Tachlis Abriya. Since the person is the Tachlis of the Briya, so therefore every day on the anniversary of the creation of Adam, so this causes a renewal in creation at large, which is created, which is today on the 25th of Elul. And now comes a shtickle chidush here that doesn't say anywhere else I see this, and that is that's where he introduced it with Yesh Leimer. So we say in Tfilas Musaf, we say that this is the beginning of your works, a remembrance for the first day. So B'chal Chassidus, what does it say? How could it say Zikaron L'Yom B'Rishon? It's not. It's the sixth day of creation. So you say that the person is the Tachlis of the Bria, so therefore, in that sense, it's remembrance of the first day. The dik of the Maamar now is not that. And he says that L'chatchila, that's the pshat, not that it's like merumas. The Zayim Tchilas Masecha, these words, that this day is the beginning of your works, refers Ala Adam to begin with. Usually Masech Ritach means what? All of creation. How can we say this is the day, the first day of all of your creation? Because he's the Tachlis of creation. But he was saying the Chatchila, that the word Masech in the first place goes on the sixth day of creation, not on the first day. Chatchila goes on Iker Masecha Sheniver B'Yom Zeh that is created on this day. So Zayim Tchilas Masecha L'Chatchila is referring to the sixth day of creation. Why? Because he is to begin with Iker Masecha. You see the difference what it usually says? Usually we say it's because he's the Iker Abriya, therefore this ratifies and justifies Tchilas Masecha. Now we're not saying that. Now we're saying to begin with the kavanah of this statement. Zayim. Tchilas Masecha, L'chatchilas Adam B'Rishon. It's talking about the sixth day of Tishrei, because he's Iker Masecha. So what Pshat Zikaron L'Yom Rishon is the opposite. The Zikaron L'Yom Rishon who we're remembering meaning you say we're ratifying and justifying Yom Rishon. There's a currently Yom Rishon, this is the diak of this Maamar. The currently Yom Rishon, who's Rosh-השנה, who's Zichron, the Yom Rishon, the Bria Chaf Elul, it also recalls and ratifies and justifies the first day of creation. Not usually Pshat is the other way. Pashas we're talking about the opposite. The Parsha is talking about the creation of the world. That's the starting point, Yom Rishon. But naturally, it's ratified by the creation of man. Here we're saying the ''נחלתינו," the Pshat and the Pasuk is the creation of man, and that is accordingly Yom Rishon that now justifies all of creation. Rosh-השנה is accordingly Yom Rishon da bria chaf belus bein nivra ilam. Concluding. So now we just said now that Rosh-השנה is two things: Yischachus of Adam and Yischachus of the Bria. And because it's Yischachus of Adam, therefore it's Yischachus of the Bria. Therefore, Rosh-השנה, we need being a Malchus for these two inyanim. This will soon seems behemshich to the whole beard of the two reasons which he explained to Dargis in Rosh-השנה, the flow of the Ein Sof that's nimshach, that's drawn anew, and the investment of Atmos, or the choice of Atmos to begin with, is all reflected in these two inyanim he's saying now, as we'll see. So therefore, Rosh-השנה being a Malchus as with two inyanim, Aleph, B'chtei Shadiyah Malchus Yishalva Ilmis Mechodesh. So first of all, this is the Gilui through Malchus. So to explain at length over the last few days what Malchus means, and that's the union of Gilui, so creation. So you need this in order that all of creation be created anew. But the Iker Inyan, it's a consequence. Creation is a consequence of what? Of the creation of Adam. So the Iker Inyan being in a Malchus, Bishvil Tildes and Neshamas Brius Adam. What's being created anew? The Neshamas Adam. The Neshamas or Malchus and Minyan Echad. Neshamas and Malchus are one thing. Moving Gam Bezesh Malchus, the class Knesset Yisrael. Malchus is called Knesset Yisrael, it's called Shechina. And also Knesset Yisrael, which means literally the gathering of the Neshamas, the repository of the Neshamas. So the Binyan HaMalchus of Rosh-השנה is primarily the renewal of Neshamas Yisrael, which needs to be understood. Therefore comes out, being a Malchus, in order that she be being a Malchus. So therefore we have to tzrichim lahamshich mimalkim. Renewal means drawing on a place, she'ein sham, which is where there isn't, in other words, higher than leidak metzias olam is not only creation, she'ein sham gam metzias haneshamas. So we have to draw on a level that renews neshamas, which now begs and the new question, so who's doing it? We're doing this, the avodah tzkiya shofar. So in addition to the question we asked earlier, how is it possible that it's a tachna should be me'ir atzmos, never got even more thorny question. And that is, so we're supposed to be me'ir, lamata here, something which is really higher than our mitzias. It's one thing that you're a mitzias, but how do you reach atzmos? You're not even a mitzias. The schachus of the neshamas means drawing on a level where the neshama doesn't exist yet. So how can I draw on that level where I don't exist? That's where we're going to. There's no neshama. The neshama has to be created. Question is clear. How can the shamas through the avodah reach a level that is higher than the mitzius? In other words, they don't exist at the level. Now, to rephrase the question, it's one thing if you're saying that neshama is a mitzius, it's a given. And then the question is, how does the neshama touch us? But it's also a question that needs to be answered. Here the question is even more. We're saying that and we have to me'ir the whole birth of neshamas altogether then we're not there to do so. We're going to a level we don't exist. So how can we be ma'ir the inyan? Question's clear. Question's clear, friends, or not? Yeah? The Kudus Habir is that the Kudah is, we're going to get here, friends, is a very profound Meididikir laying bare of what a neshama is. The Kudus Habir is that there should be Silaka Malchus. This which we say that when Malchus is withdrawn, that Dargish Shalamani mi Malchus. So it's withdrawn to all the levels above Malchus. Ain't visis makam lechil neshamas vavidosam. And that means if Malchus is withdrawn, then we are also withdrawn and cease to exist. And there's no tvisis makam. Of course, we still exist. But here, it means ain't tvisis makam. I mean, it's a level to which we have no contribution to make. Ain't tvisis makam lechil neshamas vavidosam. There's no. If Malchus is withdrawn, which you said Malchus is synonymous with neshamas Yisrael, Knesset Yisrael. So that's withdrawn, therefore they're not a Metzias. In brackets again, so that which we say that, the context of that is, Neshamas as they emerge as identifiable and individual Neshamas. You and I, etc., and lower Neshamas, the higher Neshamas rather. However, in the Tamichuni, let's say the words, I'll explain this in a minute, just get the words of the Maimah here. But the Tamichuni, she saw Mavakshim Mischan Lakadosh Baruch Hu Sheyeh Melech, the Yidden request and plead, supplicate. The Eibishter, he should be Melech. What are we drawing on? Not the Neshama as a Metzias, which means as an individual, unique creature and person, distinct and separate from another Yid, but rather, that's not what it's drawing on. But rather, we're drawing on the Etzem Neshama, Shemasheshes Ba'atzmus, which is rooted in Atzmus. So, what he says is that the Shoresh HaNeshama, the whole question was, how can we be Ma'ir and touch a level we don't exist at that level? The answer is you do. In your source. So what's the whole Yitzchak yourself, and what's the whole renewal of the neshamas then? The renewal of the neshamas is the renewal of the neshamas. The neshama emerges from Atzmos, Chachma Datzilas, and then Atzilas, and then the various stations and levels that each neshama descends and becomes molded by, as it were, and emerges and assumes an identity. I think I mentioned to you, it's my own vort, but it's I think it's valuable. That's the lotion of the Alter Rebbe, which is really a quote from a pasuk in Iyov, which is not talking about the neshama altogether, but it's a quote that I told you the Alter Rebbe employs. He's not the first one. The first one is the Sefer Shefa Tal, who brings this pasuk in reference to the neshama. And again, it's not talking about the neshama, but just the words are used as the word mamish. So, but using the words of the pasuk, we see the following: that this chelik elika. So chelik and elika is a malak alalmin. So that's the neshama, that's external level of the neshama, the particular rank and level within Ishtalshalas. We of course, as you know, generally speaking, neshamas of our generation are from malchus, the malchus, dasi. That's the chelik elika. Mimal is Eid itself a sefer kalalmin. And mamish atzmus. So that is their sources. First, Eid itself, and even higher, as you says here, atzmus mamish. When we're talking about the metzias of the neshamas, we're talking about the chelik elika part. where the neshama emerges in ishtalshalus, atzilus, lower, etc., with an identifiable I on some level. But the etzem and neshama is not I. The etzem and neshama is we and you meaning atzilus. So it's from there that Eden are ma'ored. That answers the question: how can we be ma'ored? Something, mamshech a level which is higher than our metzius. The answer is not higher than our shorish, and that's what we're calling upon. And that's where the cry, the Tamechun Yalechem, the cry, the shofar, in its simple, inarticulate cry. That's where it's coming from. That's him in the shaman. So it includes the ois found these, and therefore, from the etzem and the shaman, as it's Moishe and Atzmos, it's from there that what? That Nasa Gambinyan and Malchos, that this causes these chadshus, as we'll see, of the shamas as a metzius, our own identity as a metzius, and the world. He now goes on to explain. He's going to explain now very profoundly why it's dafke yid and dafke mitzad etzem and neshama. That is pearl binyan amalchus, as we explained it, barichos in the previous oisias. Let's begin. To explain why the whole renewal of being in Malchus, as we explained earlier, happens through which is what the Amshach of Atzmos, which is effect dafka by neshama yeshleima. So it's what it's going to explain now is not only if we have to draw an Atzmos, it's only in the neshama that's rooted there that can do so. It's much more than that. The question is going to address is, if we're talking, the question is kind of the other way around now. Why needs a beer? And that is, because if we're talking about Etzem and Neshama, Moishe and Atzmos, what's it got to do with Malchus? Malchus is all about otherness and sovereignty on creation. So if we're talking about the Neshama, the way it is in Metzias, we can understand the connection to Binyan HaMalchus, which is all about Metzias and governance over Metzias. And now that he said that the whole Avodah happens because of Gili Etzem and Neshama, it's like Gili Etzem and Neshama. Now the address is Atzmos. What's the Shaykhs to Malchus? What's the Shaykhs to governance and over a Melech B'lei Om and separate identities? The question is kind of the reverse now. Hide in the whole Indian, and no Shaykhs to the whole Indian of Malchus. Malchus is the Neshama, is the Metzias. And now we're saying, no, the whole Avodah draws on the Etzem and the Neshama. The Mamish part of the Neshama. So there's no, this hide in creation, the Tifus Mokim, just like Atzmos itself. And certainly the idea of governance and separation. So what is it? Which is it? Neshama is a Metzias, so Neshama inside its shoulders. If it's mitzad the Metzias, the child is how you can be made Atzmos. If it's mitzad the shoulders, then there's no Gedra Malchus there. It's beyond the whole Gedra of creation. And then the conundrum. By answering your question, how we can be Atzmos, then comes what's the connection to Malchus then? You could answer simply, Nisave, in Atzmos, that's what the desire to be a Melech. Nisave starts. Shamas Mushish, so they are margish, they feel this Nisave, and they carry out the Nisave. On the contrary, they feel the Nisave of Atzmos Mamish because they're rooted there, and therefore that's the connection to Malchus, the simple Bchira, the Nisave. That, in fact, is the general answer. But we're going to get in the Maimer is a profound understanding of the Neshama Mushish in Atzmos, integral to the whole kavana of And not Emelech, God's desire to be Melech, did it b'tachtonim. I told you now it's obviously true, but this Maimer, as we're going to learn now, Gewaltige Oisius and a beer, which is going to require us to think. And I hope we'll at some level, we'll stand at Rosh-השנה at Yeshayfer with the Maimer resonating in our minds and most importantly in our hearts. Let's begin the explanation. So Yeshloima al pi mavu bekama v'kaimeres be'inyin Yisrael ola b'machshava. Lashon of the Medrash that Eden ascended in the Eibishter's machshava. What is machshava? It's going to identify two levels. Machshava zu. This level of machshava is a machshava atzmis. Now, in general, before we go further, let's just talk about thought, the way it is for us. Obviously, for us, when we're thinking or entertaining, we're thinking about things, something, some experience. So obviously, you're thinking. What are you thinking about? Something other than it's outside of you. Outside of you, it's something you saw, that you experienced, that you touch, feel. I wonder, I don't know the answer to this. Chas v'sholom, such an experiment should ever be done. But if a person is born and deprived of all sensory experience, can't feel anything, not hunger, not anything, ever. Would there be any thought process? They're not processing anything. Thinking is processing something that you experience. It can be within your own body, but still that's outside the essential self. I think, therefore I am. Very, very useful insight. So that's how it is for us. But for the Eibishter, as we'll learn, there's two levels of machshava, and machshava atzmis, and we'll have kind of a parallel emotional for us, kind of emotional. Machshava atzmis is a thought not about something it being experienced, but the essential self. So this is going to explain two levels of machshava, and Yisrael olu b'machshava. Within machshava gufa, it's this machshava essential thought, and then more detail, and then it'll come out. We'll have a profound understanding why Eden, Mursish, and Atzmos, only Eden, Neshamas Yisrael, can carry out the kavana of Dira B'tachtonim. So this is very beautiful, friends, because we're going to be discussing the basic concept that we encounter in every Sikh and Maimer, Dira B'tachtonim, but with a profound nuance and appreciation of what a Yid is and what we are being Me'oire and being Mamshech, Rosh-השנה every year, deeper. The emphasis is, how could it be deeper if we're drawing on Atzmos? So if we're talking the Gilui of Atzmos, that's the answer. Okay, revelation of Atzmos is greater and deeper. That's the Afalova in itself. But we're talking Atzmos Mamash. What does it mean deeper? I don't know if there's any answer to any words that can explain that. But Akolponim may be deeper in the sense of more accessible. That Atzmos becomes more accessible to creation, even to the daimon of creation. That the daimon knows and senses and feels, and then will reveal Atzmos. In that sense, accessible perhaps might be an appropriate word. But Akoponim, so Be'ez Hashem tomorrow in person and on Zoom. What are we going to be learning? We're going to be learning about the Sheidish and the Shama Mrushish and Atzmos Ola b'machshava, as opposed to the Eibishter's ordinary, as it were, or more external machshava. That Be'ez Hashem tomorrow. Good to see everybody. Thank you for your. I don't say thank you, but your presence is appreciated.